edition of Cheers to Careers. I'm Steve Ridinghouse, the Career Outreach Coordinator at the School of Journalism and Mass Communications at KU.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cheers to Careers. I'm Steve Ridinghouse, the Career Outreach Coordinator at the KU School of Journalism and Mass Communications. Today we are joined by J School alum Kyle Sagendorph, the Digital Content Manager at USA Swimming. Kyle, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Steve. I'm excited to be here. I remember being in those halls and talking with you about careers, just a couple of years ago. So it's fun to be back here and kind of going over it.
Yeah, I started in 2015, and I think that might have been your sophomore year. And I was always impressed by you because you were always thinking the next semester ahead. And I did find your resume from 2015, yeah. And I know you've been busy since then. I think you were a caddy and a sales associate in Illinois.
Yeah.
But wow, USA Swimming sounds like an exciting time to be part of that organization.
Yeah, it's been fun. The Olympic year's been crazy for sure. But I think going back to it, I knew when I was at KU I wanted to get into sports. But yeah, to your point, I think midway through sophomore year, all I had on my resume was a golf caddy in high school and working at a retail sports store back in the suburbs of Chicago. So it's crazy how long it's taken to get here, but certainly has been fun, been some ups and downs. You'll learn a lot throughout the way, but a whole lot of being here at USA Swimming to KU for sure.
And looking at that resume, your time out, it took a while to get to where you are right now. But a great thing that caught my attention about your resume were the skills you had. I mean, you were really on top of Adobe, the Photoshop, the InDesign, Microsoft photography. So you kind of had a sense, I think, of the skills that were going to be required for the job you have right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that's something that KU did a really good job of hammering home is the more you can expand your skill set, the better. And I remember I was in it was a very Adobe based class at KU. And at the time, I think this was my junior year, I had an idea that I wanted to get into something golf related. And so the project was to create a business card for yourself if you were to, pitch yourself to a new company. And I had just started experimenting with it was Adobe Illustrator. And so at the time, the best that my brain could do for this little business card was a horizontal line that was supposed to be the putting green, a vertical line that was supposed to be the flag stick, a triangle that was supposed to be the flag, and then a circle that was supposed to be the ball. And that's essentially it. And I remember turning it in and I was like, I want no part of Adobe. I hate this program. I can't do it. But I tell that story now because it's you really do when you're at KU. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself as a student to learn all of these things, and I didn't give myself enough grace of being I remember looking at that business card and being this is tough. I'm never going to learn it. And, here we are now and we have a whole separate graphic design department here at USA Swimming, and they handle the majority of the graphics, but being able to chip in and actually, apply what I know now, is a huge part of it. So yeah, learned a lot at KU. I'm sure I stumbled a lot at KU, but that's part of growing and becoming a professional for sure.
And Kyle, how big is your digital content marketing team?
Yeah, so I work on a 4-person communications team, and we all kind of bring different areas to the table. So we have communications director and marketing communications director, and they're kind of the overall strategy behind our department and what we're putting out. And then we have myself, who mainly focuses on social and a little bit editorial as well. And then we have another member who she's more focused on the grassroots side of swimming. So I think that's a misconception that I had about USA Swimming before I started here. I thought, when you think of USA Swimming, I think a lot of people just envision Michael Phelps and Katie Ledecky. And while that is a huge part of it, we have, we're a 300,000+ member organization. And so the majority of our membership stems from those, young athletes who are hopping into a swim club for the first time, or coaches and officials who are going to the local, swim meet over the weekend. And so, yeah, that's been a big part. And tying it back to our team, that individual who's responsible for the sport development side of things, she takes on a huge lift and she does a really, really good job. So yeah, we all bring a different skill set to the team, and it kind of gets the whole flow of things going.
And I know you're originally from the Chicago area. I think you're like an hour outside of Chicago. Did you have any KU connections before you came to KU?
A little bit. So I remember going to a career fair and connecting with one of the like KU representatives there. And both my parents went to Iowa, and so they kind of they tried brainwashing me to be a Hawkeye for 17, 18 years of my life, and grew up going to Iowa City and Iowa football games. So I had a thought that I wanted to go to a big school similar to Iowa. Um, but I still remember going to that career fair, and I didn't know much about Kansas. I couldn't have pinpointed it, the university on a map, and just being blown away by what they were talking about, what they were showing me. And then, we took a visit out here and learning about the J school. And, it's a KU is a big school, but the J school did such a good job, both with how they, told me about it, but also, living through it, of making you feel connected, making it feel like you're, doing this one-on-one or in a close relationship with your professors. I never once in any of my journalism classes thought that, I was just a small fish in a big pond. I think that's a strength that KU has, was really kind of making you feel like you're being valued and people are investing in you.
In addition to your work in a classroom, I know you landed some pretty good internship opportunities, sports related. I know you did some with like KU Athletics, Sporting KC, the American Junior Golf Association. Was that all part of the plan, or was it one of those things where, hey, I see a pretty cool opportunity, I'm going to add that to my resume?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. So when I was in high school, I think that's when it kind of clicked that working in sports was going to be a possibility. My mom was a journalist, and so I knew I wanted to do something creative and with storytelling. And at first, I really, really wanted to be Mike Tirico. Like I just wanted to be calling Sunday Night Football. That was kind of my goal, or even if it wasn't football, just calling some sort of sports. But then as I got kind of further down the road, I learned about the Stratcom program at KU, and that's kind of where I landed and felt like my strong suit would be. But I actually kind of stumbled into my first job with KU Athletics. And got really fortunate with it. This would have been, I think, the spring semester of my sophomore year. And I was in some journalism class, and it was in the big lecture hall in Wesco. And our professor, and I wish I remembered who it was, but she just sent out an email one day that just said, hey, as I was walking out of class, I saw this flyer on the ground and thought I should, tell you guys about it. And it was a flyer for like interest forms for working with KU Athletics. And so like whoever this professor is, and like I said, I really wish I remember who it was, I owe so much of it to that one email, because had she not stumbled onto that flyer, had she not thought to email the class, I don't know how I would have really gotten my start in sports. Cause yeah, from there I reached out, I did the interest form, got the job, and started in that in the summer of, I guess going into my junior year. And so, yeah, that started at KU Athletics. And so then that kind of transitioned into a job with Sporting Kansas City. I saw they had an opening and just reached out to a guy that I found on LinkedIn. And sure enough, he was the one who was doing the hiring. So yeah, got kind of fortunate with that as well. And then, American Junior Golf Association, that was a great opportunity. They have seasonal internships that, I can't recommend enough for anyone looking to get into sports. And they have it both from an operations side and a communication side. So, did some great internships, all of which kind of involved, a little bit of luck, a few connections here and there, a lot of rejected jobs as well. I think that's one thing that I think took a while to learn, that being rejected for a job isn't always a bad thing. I think at first, when you get told no, it's really hard to process. But, if I hadn't gotten rejected for job A, then maybe I wouldn't have landed at Sporting Kansas City, and I wouldn't have made connections there, and then that wouldn't have led to X, Y, and Z. So, it's been a crazy journey, kind of looking back at it. But again, all of it to starting at KU and with KU Athletics.
So how is life in Colorado Springs? I mean, do you just like living there in general? I'm always impressed when I go to Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado's great. Like you said earlier, I grew up in the Chicago suburbs and then went to school in Kansas. So, I think Lawrence got me ready for what it would feel like to climb and climb those hills. So so that part has been great. Just waking up with mountains in your backyard is hard to beat. And my wife and I have, we've gotten into skiing and hiking, and we tried camping once with our dog, but he was a little too hectic for that. So I don't know if we'll go back to that road again. But yeah, Colorado's been awesome.
In your role at USA Swimming, how much creative control you have? I know anytime I see like a digital content manager, I know you're probably producing content all the time. I hope there's some trust built up with your team. But do you feel like you operate pretty efficiently? I mean, everybody plays to their strengths.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and there's we have a good system in place where there are a lot of people who have their hands on the content that we put out, but it's not for everybody who's involved in a project has their own purpose, right? So we have like I said, we have an entire sport development division, and they drive a lot of our kind of grassroots content. So I'll use that for an example. So they'll come up with a camp, educational opportunity, a networking opportunity, anything like that. They'll come up with that, come to our communications team and say, hey, we have this, which is happening on this date. We would like to target this audience. And so then it's up to our team, the communications team, to decide, all right, well, that fits. We have 11 different social media channels. So which channels would it be best on? How can we, communicate this through email marketing? How can we get the word out, word of mouth, using other people in the building to talk to their constituents? And then, like I said, we have a whole graphic design division. So then we will go to them and say, hey, we'd like to put together these graphics. And so it really is, we have, like I said, we have 4 people on our communications team, but it takes a village to get something from, start to finish. And it's great, especially with USA Swimming. I mean, we have a lot of different programs and a lot of different events to communicate out. So it definitely keeps you busy, but there's so much good that is being put out there, and a lot of opportunities for athletes, coaches, officials, you name it. So yeah, certainly fun, certainly a lot to get out. And I think we're trying to grow the sport as much as we can.
And I know you spent a few weeks in Paris for the Olympics last month. How intense was that? And did you have a pretty robust plan in place, or did you just have to wing it a few times? Or, I mean, I bet you had no shortage of content.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, the Olympic year is a whole different beast, both in terms of what we plan for, eyes on the sport, amount of people it takes to execute things. It's really intense in the best way possible. Swimming is a great sport that I think a lot of people are familiar with every 4 years. And so for us as a communications team, we felt a responsibility to treat Paris in the best light that we could, and really kind of showcase our sport to a global level, since, not everybody tunes into swimming outside of the Olympic year. And so our kind of priority actually goes a little bit before Paris and goes to our Olympic trials event, because that's essentially our Super Bowl. So if you talk to any swimmer really at the highest level, they'll actually tell you that our Olympic trials is more intense than the games. Because if you think about it, if you finish 3rd or 4th at the Olympics, or 5th or 6th or whatever, you're still an Olympian. You're still an Olympian. You still have the experience. You can still get the Olympic rings tattoo. You did it. If you finish 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th at Olympic trials, you don't have that. And the heartbreaking part of our sport is that we're so deep in swimming that, essentially how Olympic trials works is the top 2 finishers in each event qualify for the Olympic team. And I'll never forget, in 2021, we had in our men's 400 IM, the 3rd place finisher, he's left off the team because he finished 3rd. He didn't get one of those top 2 spots. A few weeks later, he swam a time at just a local meet by his hometown that would have medaled at the Olympics, but he doesn't have that medal because he couldn't make it there. And he ended up making this year's team, and he won. He medaled in the 4IM. So it all worked out. But that is just, it goes to show you that our trials event is just a different beast. And so we treat that really, really intense, in an intense manner, I guess, from a communication standpoint, just kind of telling those stories. But then, yes, so that led into the Olympic Games. We had a training camp before that. So me, our videographer, and two of my colleagues, we were overseas for. We all kind of varied. My trip was 28 days in total. But yeah, I went to Rijeka, Croatia. I think I pronounced that correctly. And did our training camp there. That just helps our team get acclimated to each other, to the time zone change. And then yeah, headed over to Paris, and yeah, competition there was 9 days. I think we got in probably 3 or 4 days beforehand. Yeah, prelims every day at, if I remember correctly, it was like 10 a.m. in local time, and then finals at, I think it was 7 or 8 p.m. So it's a long trip. It wears on you, but yeah, I guess going back to your original question, that was a very roundabout way of getting there. Yeah, you go in with a plan and a structure of, you know, let's make sure we have our metal graphics all prepared with our graphic designers, know what we want to edit, know that, you know, we're going to do our tune-in graphics on these channels and, you know, post this at this certain time. But then there are some items that just come up out of nowhere that end up being some of the best performing content pieces, and you certainly can't plan for those, but you certainly can't plan against it, right? Just because they're not in your content plan doesn't mean you can't not post them. Yeah, one good example of that is we had one of our swimmers. She's a big skateboarding fan, and my coworker, she just happened to run into a skateboarder named Jagger Eaton who won, I think he won silver in Paris. And so she just randomly asked him, like, hey, could you just wish do a little good luck selfie video for, you know, the swimmer on our team who's a big fan. And so we recorded her reaction to that, and she loved it. And so those things come up all the time. And those are some of my most, you know, I get a lot of enjoyment out of those fun little impromptu pieces. But yeah, that was a very long-winded way of answering that question. So I'm sorry if I spun anyone in circles.
And Kyle, were you at the trials in Indianapolis?
Yes.
So were you there at Lucas Oil Stadium when I was amazed by that process, how they put a pool in there. Were you there to see that happen?
Yeah, that was one of the coolest experiences I've been a part of at USA Swimming. So yeah, we put a pool in an NFL stadium, which is just like, the concept of it is insane. And since I think it was 2008 was the first time we went to Omaha, and then we did that for 12, 16, and 21. And so we had been accustomed to building pools where pools don't usually go. But when you walk onto deck, you know, and see a normal swim meet at a national level, I would say has maybe a couple thousand seats. They're usually pretty small capacity areas. And when you walked into Olympic trials and saw 20 to 30,000 seats just waiting to watch this sport, it was honestly a very emotional process for a lot of people on staff. Just because so much planning went into this event. It was such an unknown of what this would turn out like. And to see, I mean, we set the record twice for highest attendance at a swim meet, which is really cool. The crowd was insane. The reactions in the pools were great. So that event, it was so stressful, I would say, to plan, just because there were so many unknowns going into it. But to see it turn out, it was a really cool experience, and I'm really proud of the end result.
And Kyle, do you have like direct access to swimmers? I know you talk about Michael Phelps, like Katie Ledecky in Paris. Can you say, hey, Katie, come on over here, I want to do an interview? I mean, do you have that immediate access, or are there some layers to get connected to her?
Yeah, so our job at most, I shouldn't say most, at pretty much all national and international meets is more of a media relations role. And then in my role specifically, you do, you know, tack on the social media component. And so, yeah, our team is pretty ingrained with the swimmers themselves. So Paris, for example, kind of how it would operate is the swimmers would go out, they would have their swim, and then, excuse me, there are essentially 3 different media stations. And so the first 2 is for rights holder media stations, so NBC and kind of NBC properties. So the swimmers would go through that area themselves, and then they would come down and meet myself and my 2 other colleagues who were in Paris. And then we were responsible for getting them through the 3rd section of the media area. And that's where the big kind of media scrum are. And the kind of balance between that whole operation is, swimming is just such a grueling sport because you're using pretty much every single muscle in your body for a very, very short amount of time. So when swimmers come off the pool deck, a lot of times you'll see hands on knees, you'll see shaky legs, you'll see out of breath, trying to catch up. And, so we as the communications team at USA Swimming, we obviously try and be respectful of our athletes and getting them through so they can get down to their recovery session as quick as they can. But at the same time, the Olympic Games is the biggest platform that swimmers can have. So we want to be respectful to their media opportunities as well, and making sure that they can grow their own brand and whatnot. So yeah, our team is very kind of embedded into the team operations and working with the athletes. And then from a social side, yeah, of course, it's a lot of it is, going up to athletes and saying, hey, do you want to do this? Hey, we're thinking of this. Hey, we saw this picture. Would you mind doing this? We had in Paris, we had Anthony Edwards from the Minnesota Timberwolves. There were a couple of clips of him saying that he'd be a great swimmer. And so, yeah, we went up to one of our swimmers and asked if she wanted to challenge him to 50 freestyle. So there's a lot of fun things like that, for the most part, swimmers are all on board for doing that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, very ingrained with the athletes, but the top priority is always their competition and making sure that they're in the best shape they can be. So we are working hand in hand with them, but we're respectful of their training schedule too.
Did you get to hang out with Snoop Dogg?
I did not. No, I really, really wish I saw Snoop. That would have been very, very cool.
Because I think they had Snoop in the pool for a while. I think I did see a little clip of that.
Yeah, he did. I think he raced Michael Phelps. Yeah, I didn't see him. But yeah, he was at the pool a couple of times. So yeah, we had some social content around him, but I wish I could have seen him for sure.
And did you have to kind of jockey for position with, say, the U.S. Olympic, kind of their media team? I mean, were there times where you kind of trying to get the same story and give them the little stiff arm, or did you play nice?
Yeah, not really. We not really to jockeying for position, not really. No, we work hand in hand with their team. They, especially with, you can do those collaborator posts on Instagram now, and I think we do a good job of bouncing off of each other's content. Olympic trials, we had some really cool and unique access points, both us and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. And so, yeah, just kind of really trying to balance, what they're doing and what we're doing, and making sure we're not overlapping or telling the same stories. Because, yeah, we are on the same team, especially at these international competitions. But then, yeah, Paris is a little different just because access-wise, it's actually NBC is kind of the main content driver, just because they own the rights for broadcasts. So, yeah, and especially where I was, we were kind of tucked away in that little media area. So, yeah, you do what you can, but no, we work very closely with their team and making sure that we can kind of collaborate with each other.
Did you ever get to meet Izzo, the licensed therapy dog?
Yes, Izzo was awesome. That was so cool. Yeah, and so we, for those who don't know, we at Olympic trials, and I think this started in 2012. And we've been bringing therapy dogs to trials just because it is such a high intense meet. It takes so much out of you. And so, yeah, every trial since, I think it was 2012, there have been licensed therapy dogs who have come. And so this year, yeah, I walked in, I think it was a couple days into competition, and there were about, I would say, like 6-7 dogs in there. And one of them was this big kind of lab looking dog, and he was just laying down. But next to him was kind of those, it almost looked like when a parent is riding a bike and they have the little attachment car like to the back of it for their kids to sit in. It looked like that. And so I asked the owner, I was like, is that for this dog? And she's like, yeah, he has some hip problems. And so then the owner started really kind of sharing Izzo's story. And yeah, Izzo was, I forgot how old he was, but he was over 10 years old, had been doing therapy services for I think 8 years, and just had a really cool story. And Olympic trials was Izzo's last event. So immediately, me and our videographer, I was like, hey, we gotta like do something with Izzo. And so we ran over, got a spare Olympic trials medal, ran back, because I think that was that day that we met Izzo was his last day working at trials. So we put a medal around his neck, got a good photo of it, and then sent it to our graphic designers and said, "Hey, let's name Izzo an honorary member of our Olympic team." And so, yeah, we posted that, and then that story got picked up by the Washington Post. Izzo was on the We Rate Dogs account as a top 5 doggo of the week. So it just, I mean, that's a perfect example of like, we had so much in the plan for Olympic trials and the content that we are going to put out, and then we just see Izzo, and it's like, okay, that's a gold mine. And so yeah, Izzo was very, very cool, and I'm very glad that we gotta help him retire in an appropriate way.
And Kyle, one last question before we move on to Fast Five. I know you're married with, I think, a 1-year-old daughter, just turned 1. How's that work-life balance? I mean, you probably put in a lot of long hours over the years, but does that kind of change your perspective, having that young daughter? I mean, do you find yourself like, dude, I might be able to do that tomorrow? Or how's that whole work-life balance working out?
Yeah, it's the daughter is it definitely can make it hard at times, but I wouldn't want to have it any other way. I mean, she's the most important thing in my life for sure. And she's just been a huge blessing. She even came to Olympic trials, which was really, really cool to see. She got to touch the trials pool. She was crawling around on deck. We did have the lifeguard kind of hawk-eyeing us as she was crawling around on a pool deck next to a huge body of water. But we were supervising, so it's okay. But yeah, day to day, it's she's in daycare, so that helps. But there are times when it's certainly hard. Even just a couple weeks ago, she got pretty sick, and so she had to stay home. And my wife and I had to kind of work our work schedules around making sure she was okay, and making sure if I was on a call, then my wife was taking her and whatnot. But again, you wouldn't want to have it any other way. She brings so much joy into my wife and I's lives, and so doing this for her and making sure that she's in a good place is just put a whole new perspective on how I handle day-to-day life, both in and out of the office.
No, it sounds like you have a good plan in that regard. Okay, so we always like to close with a little Fast Five.
Let's do it.
So if you were to compete in swimming at the 28 Olympics in LA, which stroke is your best chance to medal in?
Oh man. So it's funny. So I was not a swimmer growing up, and so I tried to get into it a little bit, and it is so hard. It is so hard. People that I work with make it look much easier than it is. I would probably say, I mean, I can't do a flip turn, so maybe 50 freestyle, because that's the only Olympic event where you don't have to do a turn. But yeah, I remember a couple of years ago, I had a dream where I was on a work trip, we were at some international competition, and there's a relay event, and all of our swimmers for some reason got sick. And so they're like, Kyle, you need to swim this event. And so I was like, I got it, I can do it. And so I dove in, and like, you think that in a dream, like you would be like, you rise to the occasion, you swim the relay to gold, make headlines. I bombed. I did so bad, cost the relay team a medal. So yeah, I don't like my chances in any event, but I guess if I had to pick one, it would be 50 freestyle.
And I noticed, I think on your Twitter X profile, you refer to yourself as a cautiously optimistic Chicago sports fan. Who should the Bears have taken with that number 2 pick in 2017?
Oh gosh, I still get flack from my roommates about this, honestly. Yeah, but my counterpoint to this, yes, the Bears should have taken Patrick Mahomes. The counterpoint to that is that if the Bears drafted Patrick Mahomes, he would have torn his ACL. He would have, become one of the million other Bears quarterbacks that I've watched bring direct pain into my life. He wouldn't be the Patrick Mahomes that Kansas City knows today. So yes, I would love to see Patrick Mahomes in a Bears jersey. That would be very good. But I'll ride with Caleb Williams. I think we're hopefully in a good spot. I don't know. Last weekend kind of scared me.
So you're in Paris for 28 days. How much French did you get to speak?
Not too much. I got the bonjour. I got that kind of down. And beyond that, I would say that, and then somebody would rattle off something in French, and I'd just be like, I don't know. But I think the good news about being over there during the Olympics is people understood left and right. So if you pulled out Google Translate on your phone, it'd be fine. If you sat down at a restaurant and a waiter came by and they only spoke French, they would tap in someone who spoke English. So yes, I know bonjour and merci, and that's about it.
I noticed on your Facebook page a cute photo of you playing the guitar with your daughter right there. So what song does she like to hear on the guitar?
She she actually doesn't, she's not the biggest like music, actually I don't know if I would even say that, because she does like music, but she's still very much in like nursery rhymes kind of mode. So yeah, I haven't played the guitar in a while, but yeah, we've done like Beatles songs, we've done You Are My Sunshine, little stuff like that. But she has her own little ukulele, and so there have been times where like I'll pull out mine and she'll pull out hers and kind of try and teach her to play the same thing, and then she'll just like grab all the strings and like yank them, and then it's like, okay, well, we're gonna be done with that. So yeah, she's very curious though.
And staying with the music theme for the last question, I know you're part of the Marching Jayhawks and the pep band. What instrument did you play, and what was kind of your go-to song to fire up the crowd at Allen Fieldhouse?
Yeah, so I played trumpet. So I was in the marching band all 4 years. Those were the I have faith in our football team, but when I was there, they were 6-42 in my 4 years there. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in Memorial Stadium there. But then yeah, the my last 2 years at KU, I was in the basketball band, which that was super cool. Favorite song, I would say in basketball band, every single game, and I'm pretty sure they still do this. They start off with a song it's called "Sounds of Summer," I think is what it's called. But it's just like a good mashup of a bunch of different songs that one's always super fun to play. The counterpoint to that is that it's 45 minutes before tip off, so it's kind of an empty-ish stadium. So I would say in the heat of the moment, I always like doing "We're Not Gonna Take It" because the band always steps away and lets the crowd take over. So yeah, that's a fun one. Any of the fight songs are good. So yeah, I miss the band days. I'm hoping I can get back out, and they do alumni band once a year, so I'm hoping I can do that one of these years.
Can't go wrong with the Twisted Sister. Hey,
Yep.
Kyle, thanks for joining us. I know you have a busy schedule there in Colorado Springs, and again, appreciate your time. And I always like to do a little cheers toast, and I hope you got one of your KU mugs with you. Oh, nice.
There we go.
So Kyle, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for all you do.
Yeah, appreciate you, Steve.
All right.
Cheers. Thank you.